Sorry, couldn't hear you. Sorry, no, you couldn't hear me. I am sorry about that. The gremlins have crept in again. Fingers crossed this is going to be okay this time. So let me just back up quite a few sentences. Today we're looking at bandsaws again. We're looking at straight cutting, resawing, taking that timber down the length to give some really precise cuts. We've done the kind of curve cutting thing. The bandsaw is such a versatile machine. So from cutting your bowl blanks in quite deep material, quite hard material, to cutting extremely precise stuff. So something like that. Look at that. Straight, true. So it's as thick there as it is there. It's as thick there as it is there. A nice, consistent, true cut. Now, this is a really good test for any bandsaw. And the finish ain't bad either. Look at that for a bandsaw cut. It's all in the blade. All in the blade. And we'll go through blades. We'll look at the blade that I'm using in some detail. We'll look at setup. We'll do some straight cuts. And as always, I am absolutely chomping at the bit to hear your questions. I really want to hear what you want to know. So if you've got any questions or anything else you want to see from myself, from Colwyn and wood turning, from Jason hand tools, from Ben in the carving, the pyro, the scrolling, let us know. We just want to put out what you want to see. And I've got to say, so far, the response has been outstanding from you guys. We've had some great interactions, some great questions come up through the videos that we've put out so far. Afterwards, we get a load of emails with ideas and questions as well, certainly keeping us busy, keeping us on our toes. So I'll take this opportunity to say thank you very much. Stay in touch. So let's get stuck in. Let's have a look. So if we can hit up camera 2, I've got Mr. Colwyn Way himself on the cameras today. So if we miss a camera angle, it's all his fault, not mine. So camera 2, please. Beautiful. Look at that. He's got it. All right. Look at this. That was peeled off the side of this board against the fence. And we'll look at fence setup. But let's look at blades to start with, because like any machine, blades are everything, absolutely everything. Good quality, well set up, sharp. You know, if you're looking to get good performance from your machine, it's important that you use good blades. The blades that we sell, incidentally, it's a blade that I've been selling using and even jointing. I did the whole jointing of bandsaw blades thing many years ago. It's a UK-made steel and a UK-produced blade produced up in Yorkshire by a company called Dakin Flathers. We buy it. There you go. Look at that weld. That's what we do here. We join these bandsaw blades. We buy the steel in, variety of different widths. This particular one is 1/2 inch. And we join it. This is the weld. So it's welded. We pay particular close attention to tooth alignment, so you get some nice regularity in your cut. All important alignment here, that's critical. It's got to go between these two guides. So any misalignment there is a tick, 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 tick on your when you're cutting. A bit annoying, and it doesn't leave the best finish on your timber. We will take the linisher to it, make sure it's nice and smooth. It gets annealed as well, so it doesn't become too brittle. So it remains flexible and bends around the wheels without cracking. So the blade of choice for me, and to be honest, I only ever use or regularly use 2 blades. I use something like this, a 1/2 inch 3. And I'll also use one of my other blades of choice is a 1/4 inch 6. You can see this one there. It's a bit narrower. 6 TPI, 6 teeth per inch. Now this tooth pattern, 6 TPI, is a great all-rounder. It'll handle material up to kind of 3 inches reasonably well, but it won't shatter and smash the real skinny material of about kind of 1/4 inch, 6 mil, 10 mil, that sort of stuff. It's a good all-rounder. I use the 1/4 for cutting a lot of curves, A lot of shape stuff is cut with this particular blade. We're not actually going to be using this one today because all this video is about is cutting straight and how to get your bandsaw to do that. 1/2 inch wide. If you want your machine to cut straight and you get the best straight cut, 1/2 inch and above. This particular machine, the Trade AT2552B, got that right, takes a maximum of a 3/4 inch blade. So a much wider blade. Yeah, you could put it on there. Is it really, on a machine of this size, going to do much more than a 1/2 inch for you? Is it going to be straighter? Is it going to cut truer? No, it's not. To be honest, it might cost a couple quid more, but it isn't. You're not going to see a massive benefit. If you can't cut straight with a 1/2 inch blade, there's something else in your setup not quite right. 1/2 inch, 3 TPI, 3 teeth per inch. This particular tooth shape, right, we all understand about width and TPI. And TPI, incidentally, teeth per inch, I like to use an analogy, kind of 10 to 2. Easy to remember. No less than 2 teeth in the cut at any one time. So if you're cutting thin material, that, for instance, this coarse tooth will explode this skinny material. It's just too coarse. You get one tooth just smashing the hell out of this material. If you cut really deep material, well, you want a maximum, really-ish, this is a rough guide, of 10 teeth in the cut at any one time. Now, this will allow for maximum waste clearance. You can push it a little bit and get kind of 12 or 15 teeth in the cut, but what you're going to do is you'll have a tooth, a blade, a machine then that struggles to clear the waste a little bit. Bigger teeth help clear the waste. If finish isn't a particular issue for you, which a lot of the time it ain't, because you'll do your cuts and then you'll take it to a sander or a planer or even to the lathe. I mean, cutting bowl blanks, do people really care about what finish they get on their bowl blanks? I don't think so, because most of that's removed on the lathe, isn't it? Occasionally, I try and achieve the best cut that I can, because I don't like sanding, to be honest. I prefer all of my material to come off my machines, whether my bandsaw or table saw, as clean as I can get it. Okay, so we've looked at TPI, we've looked at 1/2 inch, the width for straight or curve cutting, but there's different teeth. There's the teeth in themselves, the shape of the teeth is all important. Now, years and years ago, in a previous life, longer than again that I care to remember, this was something that I used to sharpen and repair regularly. This is a kind of small section of a bandsaw blade, and this is a true resaw blade. This is this particular one's about 4 inches in width, so well, 1/2 inch width, 4 inch width, and this one is a kind of 0.75 TPI. All right, it's called a 1.5 pitch. So they actually measure between the tips, and that was known as the pitch on this particular blade. Oh, I think we've got a question.
Okay, Craig. So we've got a question here from Martin. Can you fit a 1/2 inch blade to the Craft AC 1400, please?
Too small. The machine is too small. Maximum of 3/8 on that machine. You'll still get a good straight cut from 3/8, but go with kind of, well, depending on the material depth, let's go with 4 TPI, 3/8 4, or even 3/8 6. So that small machine on the small benchtop bandsaws, and I own one. I love the little thing. It kind of surprised me a little bit, I've got to say, because I'm used to dealing with stuff that's just a little bit bigger. I use 2 blades. I've got a 1/4 for most of my curves. And then if I cut straight on that one, which I don't often, I have a lot of times for staff training, little demos I've done on that machine, videos, 3/8 of an inch, 10 mil. Hope that's useful, Martin. Oh, got another one.
Brilliant. And then we've got Maria. Would you use a wider blade if cutting strips in thick wood, say 4 or 5 inch wood?
Yep. If you want to cut straight, wider blade, 1/2 inch wide. So if you want to do this sort of stuff, you know, I mean, this has been cut that way on, and we're going to do this in a minute. You'll see some cuts. I've actually, check this out, look, band cam. All right, we've actually bolted one of our homemade gimbals to the side of our band. Look at this, look, band cam, so you get a really good shot of some cuts in a minute or two. And I'm going to do a number of cuts for you. I'm going to do some straight stuff like this in kind of pre-machined material, but we're also going to look at cutting logs. I mean, I don't know about you, but certainly we here in the Skills Centre, we get offered all sorts of material, all sorts of timber. I've just taken a tree down. Do you want a bit of this and a bit of that? And a lot of the time it's no, we don't use it, don't need it. But there is so much out there. I took down an apple tree. This is a bit of apple. I'm going to turn this into some planks, some mini planks for you. So we're going to do that in a minute or two. We're going to go through setup a little bit more first. We've got a little piece of laburnum here. There we go. And I've given this a flat surface to start with. And I'll point that out in a minute or two. We're also going to look at... Now, for those of you that tuned in for Colwyn's wood turning video on Tuesday, he put up some images of him cutting some ash. This is a piece of that ash. He's kindly brought it in. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this and turn it into boards. Turn it into boards. So kind of using the planking method. And we'll talk about through sawn, slab sawn, quarter sawn, rift sawn, and which bit is which. We'll do that as we go. So if you've got any questions around that, I'll do my very best to answer. I must say I'm not an absolute expert in this sort of thing, but I kind of know what's what. So back to it. So tooth shape's important and tooth size. This, like I say, is quite big. These this was a 4-inch one. We used to get 7-inch wide ones. The 7-inch wide ones were 22 foot long. Huge, great things. That the bottom wheel of the bandsaw used to sit in a pit in the floor, just to bring the table up to a workable height. It was kind of known as a pit bandsaw as well. We don't sell these. What we do sell, if you've got machines, if you're running a big bandsaw, and what we've got here, this 14-inch wheel, and that's often how bandsaws are known. 14-inch wheel, that's the wheel diameter. All right. This particular machine is a 16-inch wheel. All right. This particular blade, which is the biggest one that we sell, will only go on machines that are 18-inch wheels and above. So if you've got one of those big old Wadkins or something like that, this is a cracking blade. It's called the Ripper for fairly obvious reasons. It's a really coarse tooth. It's quite wide, as you can see. This one's 1.5 inches wide. But look at the tooth shape. If we can come over to camera 2 there again, please, Mr. Wayne. Perfect. Let me just get this in the right orientation for you. Now, check out this tooth shape. It's called a skip tooth. It looks like it actually skips a tooth. It looks like there's a tooth missing here, doesn't it? Big, long, elongated gullet. The low point in the tooth is called the gullet. It's important for waste clearance. Because these are designed for cutting deep, cutting straight, removing a lot of material, we've put in a really long gullet called a skip tooth, and that helps, again, like I said, with waste clearance. It's a hardened tooth, obviously, as all but most bandsaw blades are. You can see the teeth are hardened there. But this particular blade, nice and coarse, nice and wide, will cut nice and straight in deep material without putting too much load on your machine. 18-inch diameter wheels and above. There's something else on a skip tooth blade that makes it just a little bit more unique. And the boys are going to stop me. Cohen's going to stop me if I start rabbiting too much about blades. It's kind of my thing, sadly. I don't know why. Maybe all those years spent as a saw doctor and saw sharp and a bandsaw blade type fellows just got to me. We've got the skip tooth. We've said that. Nice wide. It's coarse. But it's actually got Raker Set. It's called Raker Set. And you know what set is on a bandsaw blade? Well, you get one tooth facing one way, one tooth facing the other way. And they're kind of bent, one way, one the other, one way, one the other. And that's to give you clearance. So the actual cutting point is wider than the body of the blade. So as you're slicing through that deep material, it doesn't bind up on the back of the blade. Oh, we've got a question. Is somebody asking me to be quiet about bandsaw blades already?
So we've got a couple of requests here for, so one from, is it Maria in Wales?
Yep.
She's asking if you can cut some log cookies
Yes.
on as well as planks.
Yep.
And then we've got another one here from Mark. Will you be showing how to cut a log round safely?
Yep.
Just purchased his new bandsaw.
Yep.
Yep. What blade would you recommend to use?
So absolutely, definitely stay tuned. I think it's towards the end, so you'll have to bear with me. I'm going to show you the do's and don'ts about cutting logs in the round. And I'm going to really emphasize about the don'ts. All right. It's not a particularly safe thing to do without jigs and holding devices in places. But I'll show you some that I've made, something that you can easily make, and will make your bandsaw use a whole lot better. All right, so this set, sorry, I'm just about to stop on bandsaw blades. I just want to show you this last little bit. So Colin, if we can come over to 2 again, my friend, thank you. So we've got set, one tooth bent one way, one tooth bent the other, give new clearance in the cut. This particular one, and a skip tooth, is just a little bit different. It's called Raker Set. It's got one tooth facing one way, one tooth straight, one tooth facing the other way, one tooth straight, one tooth the other way, and all the way around like that. So in between the 2 bent teeth, it's got a straight tooth. Now the idea of that tooth is a raker tooth. This tooth will make the cut. It'll create a chip which goes down inside the gullet and lingers around this area in the cut. This tooth being straight will sever that tooth, that chip, and cut that chip in half. So creating smaller chips all round, making those smaller chips easier to clear through the cut. Quite clever, isn't it? Who'd have thunk it? A bandsaw blade. Who'd have thought they were so complicated? Really? So that's kind of where we're at with bandsaw blades right now. It's everything. Like I said, it's absolutely everything. So let's put that to one side for the moment, and let's get into actual cutting. Let's do some cutting. Now, important, what we're looking to do is, if you want your machine to cut straight, we've got another question. Brilliant.
So just a quick one. Are you going to show cutting for bowl blanks from the Hobby Turner?
If time allows, I'll do that. If time allows, I'll do that. What I'm going to do that in a different video, because I'm all set up and I'm all geared up for cutting straight here. We can definitely talk about it, but I did plan to do in a couple of weeks something, bandsaws specifically for turners. So stay tuned for that one. Okay. The wood machine user's best friend. Little 6-inch engineer square, or any square really, but I prefer to use the engineer squares. I find them just a little bit more precise. We're going to make sure that, if we can hit up camera 2, please, that's square. Now you've got adjustment on the table. The table tilts. We know bandsaw blades, they tilt, don't they? You can tilt them, all right, to give you angled cuts. Underneath every bandsaw, there's a little stop bolt just underneath in this area. You can see my hand. Let's go. Yeah, you can see in this area. There it is, stop bolt. So when your machine comes down to that stop point, that stop bolt will always bring you back to your square, making that a kind of set and forget process. Get your bandsaw, get it new, set that up. You probably never need to touch it again. You'll always guarantee that we're square and straight. Another key thing is making sure your fence, if you're going to be working off the fence for a lot of straight cuts, you will be, make sure that's square to the blade. Now, there's a number of different ways to do it. There really is. What I like to do, I like to make sure my fence is kind of in line with my mitre fence slot. All right, just pull it over, line it up there, lock it off. Now, a really good device that we use is the Bandsaw Buddy. All right. Now, what that can do then, you know that your fence is in line with your mitre fence slot, but your table might not be quite true to the blade. This exaggerates the width of the blade. You can pull that over, lock that off, and then just jiggle the table. There's bolts underneath the trunnion on the table that you can just slacken slightly, and just move that table left or right to get complete alignment. And that's something that works really, really well. What about if you didn't have one of these bandsaw buddies and you wanted to align your fence? Well, you can do test cut after test cut after test cut. You can do a number of those kind of repeat cuts. But another thing you can do, I'm just going to nip over to the other side of the workshop just for 2 seconds. Here we go. What you can do, all right? This is freehand, a bit rough, I know. Draw a line parallel to a good straight edge. All right. Yes, you can measure it and get a bit more precise than my scribe line, although this is quite a good method, isn't it? Kind of works well. What we've got then is a line parallel to our edge. Then you can take that piece of material over to your bandsaw. All right. All right, so if we can get a bit of extraction. All right. So you can take the material over to your bandsaw. Let's drop those guides down. That's an important thing. Bringing those guides down till they're just above the workpiece. And what I'm looking to do is freehand follow this line as good as I can. As good as I can. Can we pick up camera 3 there, Colwyn, for a second? Oh, we're on camera 3. Beautiful. Thank you very much. All right. You get some extraction. Right. Now what I'm looking to do is pick up this line. Maybe I should have started the line closer. Slow and steady. Following that line as precisely as I can. And when I get about halfway down my board, I'm going to stop, keeping the material exactly where it is. I'm going to turn the machine off. Wait till the machine comes to a complete stop. All right. Then, what you can do is bring your fence over to that material. If you're not sure, you can put a pencil line there. Take that off, then bring your fence over to that pencil line. And that will give you some alignment. That's quite an old school way of doing it. Pretty simple way of doing it, but an old school way of doing it. Now, years ago with bandsaw blades, they were nowhere near as well made as they are now. The set wasn't as regular. They weren't as sharp. So each and every blade change that you had to be, your fence had to be reset to the blade each time, which was a right pain in the bum, to be honest. But I find now the blades are that good. The set is regular. It's really sharp. Yeah, I just out the box and set it up once. Follow one of our videos. I've done quite a few bandsaw setup videos. One that's really quite in depth. So track back on that. If you're new to a bandsaw, you might find it quite useful. And you probably never need to do it again. Right? Okay. So let's do some nice precise cutting. Let's get into it. So I'm going to peel off another veneer for you. All right. Let's do another one of those. Like I say, that was about 1.5 millimeters. So I'm coming over there. All right. I'm going to load my material in. Yeah, my flat is surfaced against the fence. Always you want your flat surface, whatever you've got. Flat here, stable on the table as you can physically get it. Right, so let's bring the guides down as close as I can, and we'll look to do a little peeling cut, a little cut of about, let's lock that off. Oh, I don't know, let's be cheeky and let's have about 1 millimeter. All right. Right, so there we go. That's what we're doing. We're going to feed that through there and there. I'm going to use a push stick. Always use some sort of pushing device. I mean, I'm really quite used to these bandsaws, as you probably gather, but I don't put my hands close to the blade. I just don't do it. It's just as simple as that. So I'm just going to peel this off. Push stick. All machines come with them. Use them. Right, here we go. So let's have some extraction, please. I'm going to put my ears on as well. Oh, perhaps if you turn it, that's me being safe. Okay. All right. So really smooth, quiet running, which all bandsaws should be. My natural standing position is on the corner of the machine. So the force of me pushing through is naturally transferred into that corner down there. The bandsaw itself pushes down towards the table. All I've got to worry about is keeping this material against the flat fence. And the push stick's going to help me all the way along. I'm not going to try and push straight away. It's just too awkward. But I'm going to use the back of the push stick, which is curved, as you can see. All right, and use that as a kind of guide. Look. Now what I'm not going to do is start pushing after the cut. I don't want to put any pressure here, the cut's done. And you can kind of close the cut a little bit. Look at that. All the control is in front of the blade. Once you're beyond that blade, nothing touches. Right. Slow, steady feed. And usually when the edge of my material gets to the edge of the table, that's when I'll look to introduce the push stick. You've already got it in your hand. So it's just a case of rolling it round and feeding on through. Slow, steady control. What I'm looking to do now is slow down a little bit. I don't want to pop through the cut. Slow, slow, slow. There we go. Let's retrieve that, turn the machine off. Look at the results. Okay. Okay, we can pick up camera 1, please. There we go. All right. So we are very, very precise. Let's have a look at finish. Finish is good. All right. Nice, consistent finish. Nice, consistent width. There, there. There. Now this is the good test. This is what you want to do when you get your bandsaw. You want to know whether it's cutting straight. Just peel off some. You don't have to be quite as ambitious as this. And it could be less than a millimeter, but it's a really good test. It's quite a pretty piece actually. Piece of tulip. Yeah, you can see the kind of pattern in that. Tulip we use a lot of. Ben uses it in his pyro. Colin doesn't turn it too much. He uses more exotic stuff, more fancy stuff. We get the cheaper stuff in here. But tulip, it never ceases to amaze me how pretty it can be. You get all sorts of colours coming in tulip. Some greens, some browns, even some purples. The kind of rainbow tulip. So it's a really pretty timber. Nice timber to practice on, actually, if you're new to woodworking. So look at that. A nice, clean, straight cut. So let's just go through 1 or 2 bits and pieces on setup. All right, just turn that off. Square. Wide blade. A blade that isn't too fine a tooth and it's going to struggle to clear the waste. That's a really nice cut. All right, I'm really happy with that. So let's do something a little bit bigger. Now this machine itself, it can go up to 8 inches under the guides. That's a maximum piece of material that this machine can handle. I wouldn't want to do it on this machine all the time. I would not want to cut 8 inches on this machine regularly. It's just too big. That's a maximum for your bandsaw, not kind of an optimum. An optimum for this particular machine would be kind of a regular 4, 5, or maybe 6 inches. To cut bigger stuff regularly, well, you need to head over to a bigger bandsaw. And I think that's what we'll do now. So let's, I'm just going to back over to our machine now. This is the AT3552. So it's just a bigger bandsaw. It's got a bigger wheel, which in turn will give you a bigger throat. This is known as throat. This is known as depth or height under the guides. And this one's kind of quite stretched. It's got 14 inches under the guides. So kind of 14 by 14. It's quite big. So putting quite big stuff to this machine is going to be easy. Same kind of setup principles. I have absolutely made sure that my fence is square to the blade. My blade is square to the table. Yeah, I've got the old bandsaw buddy out and did all that stuff. The blade that I've got on there, if we can just pick up camera 4, Colin, mate. I thank you. Now the blade, if I make sure I've got it isolated, yeah, it's isolated before I go touching blades and stuff. It's a bit wider, this one. this machine will comfortably handle an inch blade, but this one is 3/4 of an inch wide, so 19 mil. And this one's, again, is a 3 TPI, 3 teeth per inch. Great, as discussed, for resawing, cutting deep timber down the length for just sizing. And this was one of these two I'm going to use for the logs as well. So let's just get straight in and do some resawing on this particular one. Now, what I've got is a piece of elm, a kind of chunk of elm. I think it's going to be quite a pretty piece. It looks quite nice from the outside. It's got a taper on it there. You can see it's about inch and a quarter there, and it tapers down to kind of 2 inches at that end. I've run the plane, just a hand plane, over this end, just to give me something flatter to start with. And that's always a good thing to do, is try and get yourself a flat surface to start with. Certainly important if you're trying to cut logs. Just something stable on the table. Table saws, planers, chop saws, bandsaws. Remember, that's stable on the table. You're going to get better results, and it's going to go through the cut better. And it's going to feel safer in use. That's all important. I'm going to take this down the length. I'm going to work off these cleaner sides. This one's rough sawn. I don't know whether you can see that. Let me turn it over. Look at that. Now, what kind of machine was that cut on? What do we think? Table saw. A big one. You can see this arc here. Where am I? You can see this arc. That's a curvature of a circular saw blade. That's a little bit of back cutting. So the back of the blade as they're coming through the cut. Now that blade diameter was probably around 36 to 40 inches in diameter. So 900 millimeters to a meter in diameter. But you can always tell the circular saw blades, because they've got that curvature. Bandsaw cut lines are always straight. I'm going to cut this. I'm going to take it. I want to, whatever I do with this, I want it to be usable afterwards. So I don't want to take it too thin. All right. So I think I'm just going to take him down to about an inch, 25 mil. So I'll be setting my scale on my fence to 25. Where is it? There we go. 25. The flatter, smoother goes against the flatter, smoother table. I'm coming in here. Now, it's quite a big piece. Now, there is a little risk of coming away from the fence. It's quite tall, although I've got the tall fence on, which again is quite important with ripping, straight cutting. You get quite a tall fence. If your bandsaw's not got a tall fence, then just add a board in, clamp, screw, drill holes in, and make a taller fence for you. So I'm just going to chop that down the length, just like that. I want some assistance. I want some pressure that way. It's quite a deep board. It's about 9 inches deep. So I'm going to add in, here we go, and just get another little, just a little pressure block. All right, little rubberized pressure block. I'm going to put that in, again, before the blade. Everything goes before the blade. All feed pressure, all fence pressure goes before the blade. After the blade, the cut's done, and you do run the risk, as you saw in my previous cut, of closing the timber on the blade. So just, it's done, forget it. That drops in the mitre fence slot, and you can flick this and just move it in and out towards the fence to sandwich the material. This is rubber, flexible, all right, and your timber can be fed through. Now, this is tapered one end, so I'm only going to put quite light pressure this end. All right, oops, that doesn't work well. All right, so just there, and that will be fed through. Okay, I'll drop the guides down. My material, you can see I'm going to get close to the guides. Close to the timber with the guides. So we're about, I don't know, about an inch above there. I'm going to flick the power on. Oh, I'm going to put my ears on. Grab my push stick. All right. Put the push stick there for a minute. Double check. All good. It's always worth checking your timber as well, particularly if it's kind of rough or resawn stuff. Just check for nails, staples. One of my annoyances, we get timber delivered here. You get kind of racks of tulip and God knows what. They staple the delivery notes to the and species details and all that sort of stuff to the timber, to the side of the pallet. So you've got brand new timber and it's got staples stuck inside. Annoying. Right, on. Right, so we're running through nicely. Here we go, I've got my push stick to hand, don't need it just yet. We're into that corner. You notice that I'm stood on the corner of the machine again. Automatically transferring my pressure into that corner. And here we go. Slow, steady feed rate. You can see that rubber pressure guard there. Doing what it's meant to do, just pushing towards the fence. Again, trying to keep a consistent feed rate, really. On a board like this, you generally put it through a planer after, and get the hand play out. You're not particularly a hand tool man, Jason's the man for that, that's for sure. Right, now I'm trying to get close to my hand, I think it's push the turn. Here we go, so. Again, I'm slowing down, just above that. I've got a support table at the back, but I'm still going to support my material. Here we go. Last little bit of the top. Slow down. Beautiful. Okay. Let's leave that there a second. Turn him off. Look at the results. All right. Let's turn it off. Better. Okay. If we can come over to camera one. Right, now this is the ooh moment, isn't it? So you get that. Beautiful. Look at that. Now what could that be? Well, this bit is not quite as useful as you'd think, but there's still a bit of life in that. Look, kind of inch and a half one end and 10 mil. I know I'm switching between metric and imperial. It's just the age I am. But look at that piece. A beautiful piece. Look. Okay, we have a question. Ben.
So I've got a few questions here, Craig.
All great stuff. Let's have them.
First of all, where did you get that side pressure pusher?
Well, I think it's in the link below. I think it's I think the brand is Bow. Can we go over to camera 2, Mr. Way? Bow. All right. They do a number of different pushing devices. Let me pop that there a second. And can you see it? There we go. I'm going to pop that just there. They do a number of different pushing devices. All right, there's another one. So this is kind of a push stick. All right. They're really well thought out, actually. You know, this one's really comfy. If we can pick up camera number 1, look at that. Just feels really nice. You use them on a bandsaw, table saw, this thing. They've got kind of foam ends. So they're non-marking on your material. They've got a little bit of flexibility. And if you do cut into them, which happens with push sticks, we know that, they don't kind of make you jump, they don't split, they don't shatter. These things are great. We've got some for the pressure guards for the router tables and stuff like that. Just a really useful thing. And I'd advise to invest in something like this for most machines if you can. Just saves having to put your hands too close. I don't like it. As long as I've been doing it, I'd still... Safety, I mean, I don't necessarily harp on in these videos about safety, don't do this, don't do that. But I'd strongly believe that safety and good practice can become a habit. Now, you hear everybody say, oh, bad habits on the machines, bad habits. Well, they become good habits as well. And operating safely in a workshop can be a good habit. It's bloody important. Right. We are... Oh, more questions.
Okay, so next one. What extractor are you using?
Oh, I've not got one in the room. Our extractor is so big, it wouldn't fit in this room. It's a kind of industrial 3-bag unit with fine filtration. Kind of one you big steel cabinet type that you see out the back. But if you're running a bandsaw and you want to think extraction, your bandsaws, if it's a kind of small to medium sized bandsaw like this one, you can kind of run them on most everything. I have run them on the little kind of vacuum cleaner type things before, although it's not the best. The small tin can vacuum type extractors are very good. Bandsaws, they produce not a really heavy wood chip like a planer would say, but not necessarily the ultra fine stuff that that maybe sanders do. It's kind of somewhere in between the size of the particle of the waste. I would recommend one of the smaller top bag type, you know, the vacuum type extractors, drawing a lot of airflow quite slowly, big bag capacity. That machine in turn then will have the capacity to run other machines for you as well. Easily run a little planer, table saw, bandsaw. So yeah. All right. Oh, we've got more.
And are there any particular differences? This is from Adrian. Are there any particular differences in setup or procedure for ripping versus cross-cutting?
Nope, identical. Every blade I set up identically. Making sure that I'm square, making sure I've got the guide set correctly, making sure we've got the right blade for the job. Everything's just the same. No difference at all. Even blade tension and stuff, it's identical. Okay. All right. Right. So let's crack on. What we're going to do. So we've done some kind of straight cutting. We've looked at blades. Well, let's get some logs, and we'll just size some logs. Take some log form down to planks. So we'll pop that just there. We have, you know, this gnarly old piece of laburnum, quite pretty. You know? All right, it's even still got the moss on it and stuff at the garden. All right, and we're going to try and take this down in planks. You can see I've just started to cut to indicate what I'm going to do for you here now. Now, a couple ways of doing it, but you know, logs are difficult to cut. I mean, cutting them off like that, freehand, even if you've created a flat spot, absolute no-no. I'm going to cover this a little bit in a minute or two, but we're going to look at just sizing logs a little bit down the length, kind of ripping, resawing, if you like the kind of wood mill would do. The key thing is a log is a log. It's roundish. It wants to roll. And remember me just saying stable on the table? That's what we've got to try and do. We try and create that flat surface to start with. Now, however you create that flat surface is up to you. It's just that first surface, this flat surface, without a jig, which I'm going to introduce a jig. I'll show you a jig in a minute or two to help you with this. Just get that flat surface on there. You can, if you've got a planer thicknesser, just very carefully skim it over the top, taking off the bark and the sapwood, just to give you enough flat surface that it feels like it's gonna be stable on that table. Planer thicknesser, I often do it with my little Makita power plane, just to give me flat surface. Hand plane on there if you got one that's a little bit rough, you don't mind blunting it a little bit maybe. Draw knife, take the bark off, skim this bark off here. All right, so that gives you something that doesn't roll around in the cut. Now the next cut itself is a little bit more difficult, and quite often I introduce a jig for this, and like I say, I'll show you that one in a minute. But you can kind of do it without the jig itself. What we're looking to do now is to create another flat surface for something to ride a little bit more smoothly against our fence. All right. And what I'm really literally just going to eyeball my piece of material and look for the flattest surface to start with. And that's that side. And I'm going to try and put that against the fence best I can. All right. Now it's going to kick a little bit, but there's nothing wrong with that. As long as you've got that one flat surface, using the fence as a guide. You can freehand it as well. You know, I could literally just try and freehand that just down there and just try and keep and pick up that line. It's a little bit difficult to do, a little bit difficult to see, but at least I've got a fence there. It just gives me something as a reference and as a guide to run to. So that's what I'm going to run now. I'm going to drop my guides down. Remember, this log is a very irregular shape. It's kind of, it's bowed in all directions. Camera one there, okay. It's bowed in all directions. All right, so it's not the easiest piece, and we're selected because it's not the easiest piece. So let's bring over our fence, and we'll just eyeball this and see what we've got. Here we go. I did something like that. All right, I'm going to bring the guides down to give me support best I can, remembering one end of the log might be thicker than the other. So set your guides to the thickest end. Just get down and eyeball it and see which one's thicker. Because you don't want to get halfway through the cut and think, oh, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to get stuck this end and have to fiddle around with the guides mid-cut. It's never a best thing to do. Okay, so let's turn the machine on, get some extraction, and we'll feed that on through. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's kind of making very light work of it. There we go. Right, what have we got? Let's move the fence out of the way for a minute or two. All I've done though is just take that little outer edge off. All right, so I've got rid of the bark edge, through into the sapwood just a little bit. I've started picking up even though the sapwood on this is quite hard and quite nice looking. Yeah, I've just got rid of that. Now what I've got is something even flatter. Look at that. I've kind of got squareness there now. I don't know exactly how square we are, but I don't think it's going to be a million miles away. Look at that. So, what can I do now? I can really start getting it down to the size that I want. Where are we going? Let's go. I want to try and cut this down to something that's going to be usable, actually. The method I'm going to use now is what's known as kind of slab sawing. All right. So I'm literally from that surface, I'm just going to cut. Now, it's a very common way to cut stuff. It's quick. It gets good use from the entire log. And a lot of material is cut that way, particularly the relatively cheap softwood, fast-grown construction type timbers. If you want something that's a little bit more stable, trouble is we're cutting it, slab sawing it like that, or through sawing, as some people call it. You've got the growth rings. Now, the growth rings. Pencil. Here's a pencil. There we go. Right. Can we see that? Yeah, that's not too bad. The growth rings are like this. Kind of like that. You got that circular thing going on. I'm going to turn that up. Now, what we're about to do is slab saw it through there like that. But you get quite an arc on the rings here, the annular rings. And what they'll try and do, they'll kind of try and straighten out when it's drying, and it won't stay as flat. Now, what we've got, I've got a piece here that kind of looks like that. There we go. There you go. Look at that. So we've got to shake through the end, which is kind of normal when you're drying stuff, particularly if you haven't sealed the end. But look, that's just those rings that want to kind of straighten out. This is a piece of pear, actually. Quite a pretty piece, quite a nice colour. Oh, no, it's not. This is plum. This is plum. We've got all sorts of fruits going on. We've got apple, we've got plum. We've actually got a piece of pear. Let me just grab that piece of pear now I've mentioned it. All right, there you go. It's a piece of pear. So we've got the right greengrocers going on today. So, where was I? All right. Known as kind of slab sawing or through sawing. We can actually do cuts on a log like this that makes the timber that you get afterwards, the boards that you get afterwards, more stable. And it's what's known as quarter sawn. A quarter sawn timber is a little bit more money generally than slab sawn stuff. But what you do is maybe take your board through the middle first, then you'd kind of quarter it this way, and you'd cut this piece and turn it, cut this piece, cut this piece, cut this piece. But then that will make the rings almost straight through here. making a much more stable piece of material, less prone to cupping and movement. A little bit more money and you get a little bit more wastage from a board, I must say, but it is more stable. I don't think it's necessarily a prettier looking timber, because when you get these annular rings coming straight through the material here, they come out as just kind of almost boring straight lines often in the material. But when you've got kind of slab sawn or through sawn, it's a much prettier piece of material, like this piece of tulip that I just cut. All right, you get an effect which is known as, well, the cathedral effect, for obvious reasons. Kind of looks like a cathedral, also known as a kind of flame effect. Again, not stable. Now, this was cut a little while ago, and you already see it's started to want to, this is dry as well, and it's starting to want to move. It is thin, I know. But it's generally a much prettier cut. Certainly, if I'm looking to do any of the Shosugi-ban wood burning, I'm looking for bits of timber that look like this, because this really shows up beautifully when you burn it and then brush it. Anyway, I digress. Oh, one more cut. All right. When you've done your quarter saws, you end up with this little corner here, this little bit. And often that will still be in use. They won't continue to quarter sawn till you end up with something so small it's not good to anybody. They'll take this piece, which has kind of got diagonal lines through it, diagonal rings through it. This is known as rift sawn. Quite a useful piece. It's quite often square or a little bit more chunky, often used for kind of table legs and stuff like that. Okay, there you go. Now that we've got two flat surfaces that are remarkably square to each other, we can just start slabbing. I'm going to slab this one. Again, how thick do I want my slabs? Well, it's not the biggest of logs, I know, but I'm just going to take these down to about 16 mil, 5/8. So I'm just going to pick up 0 and back it off to 16 mil. There's that. All right, and there we go. Again, I could use my push stick to push this on through. All right. I could also use something like this, a little push block. All right, this little push block here is really going to help me. I'm going to push through the material. It's kind of soft foam. I use it on my planer thicknesser a lot, actually, and you can make your own with little spikes coming out of there to really dig into the material. But so let's make sure our power's on. Let's get some extraction. Let's drop the push block and away we go. Again, standing on the corner, pushing into that corner. That feels really stable and there's no roll or movement. Really nice. And this lady is eating up this material. It goes a bit shallower. And then we come up again here. And this is a time that I might think about pushing it through to something else other than my hand. And there we go. As we come out the back of the cut, I'll slow down a bit. Boom. There we go. That's one bit. Let's just slab all of this, shall we? While we're in. Stopping in the middle of a cut is never a problem, particularly on a bandsaw. It kind of makes it one of the more safe cutting tools. All the downward cutting force is down towards the table. Circular saw blades, a lot of the cut is towards the operator. This makes it kind of a little bit more comfortable to use. Nothing on the table saw. There we go. So what we've got there you can see at the start of our slab sawing, back that up a little bit. That. Really pretty piece. Look at that. I have no idea what we're going to do with this. It'll probably sit on the shelf for months. Look at that. Gorgeous. All straight and true. I don't know that we'll be able to do much of anything with that. I don't know if you make small boxes, little trinket boxes, this sort of stuff. These small logs that might end up on the fire are really quite good. All right. No. Okay. So that's doing that kind of freehand without jigs and stuff. What I've got is a jig to show you to help you with this, where you don't have to try and get that flat surface yourself. The jig can help you do it actually on the bandsaw. So let me pop these down over here and we'll look at a jig that we've got. There we go. Look at that. All right, so that is, let me get the clamps out of the way. I'll show you the clamps in a minute or two. This is just a little resawing jig. Oh, there's my pencil. Look. Right. Okay, so we have 2 tracks cut in. I've used a kind of aluminium UJK kind of smooth tracks here. Makes just jig making so much easier. You can route in slots. But underneath, we've got some of, again, the UJK, you can tell because it's orange, 19mm mitre fence bar. Again, if you're making any jigs, and it's got a jig maybe that you're not going to use a lot, or maybe it's for one job, sometimes jigs are, you can just use a bit of board for this, just cut some 19mm board. This is designed to run in your mitre fence slot on your bandsaw, and I'll show you in a minute. But yeah, some 19mm cut ply, or if it's a jig that you're going to use a lot and you want it to be good, you're spending time on this jig, something like this is good. We've got lots of little holes in here. You can see all these screw holes, and each one does have a screw in. Now, I've purposely, it's difficult to see, you might just see it here. There's just the ends of the screws just poking through this baseboard here. Now, that's going to help grip the material and stop any sliding. I've got a fence that I can move backwards and forwards depending on the width of board I want to cut. I've got a series of holes I've put in the fence. Now this is going to be my clamping operation. So let's take this over. So I'll tell you what, let's move this thing, otherwise I'll get skewered. All right. I'm going to put in a piece of ash, that piece of ash that Colwyn kindly donated to the cause. All right, this is the bit that I'm going to use. All right. Okay, so it's about kind of 7-8 inch ash there. All right, and instantly I just want to try and find its most stable position on my material, and it kind of feels pretty good there. Let's try it the other way. Shouldn't make any odds. There we go. Right, and I'm just going to position it so the edge of my log is just over the edge of the board. Now I've made this jig so my bandsaw blade runs really close up to the edge of the board here. And that's where I'm going to position it. I've also got, you probably won't see them too much, you'll certainly see them in use. I've got some lines that I've scribed in here. Now, each one of these lines is 1 inch apart. So if I want to do some inch slabbing off this, I can do some inch slabbing. Just like you're setting the fence, we can kind of set this fence to do a similar sort of job. But first off, I'm just going to roughly position that so I can just get a skim cut here to give me that first flat surface. I'm going to bring my fence in. I'm going to look to square my fence as well. And that's what these lines help with as well. I guess you could do some tapered cuts with it as well. If you had a log that was really extremely out of square, you could use it to help square that. All right, now what I want to do, I want to just offer this log so I can pick up this edge here. Just want to get my first skim cut to be a full cut. I don't want to kind of come in there and just the blade pick up here and then try and find the log in the middle. I want to start it on the edge like that. And there we go. I'll bring the fence over like this. There we go. Right. Make sure we're square. Block the fence off. Exactly where I want it. 2 knobs at the back. A little clamping block that fits in one of the fence holes. This again itself has got a couple of little screw spikes in it to dig in the end grain to give me grip. Because what I'm worried about is when we're cutting down at downward pressure, I'm a little worried about it rolling that way. I don't think it's going to be too much. We've got a lot going on here with the fence and the grip screws, but there's a chance that could happen. Just going to move that fence over a teeny bit more, particularly on that end. There we go. Perfect. All right, let's drop in our stop block. There we go. So as I said, I'm going to do a couple of cuts on this. Then let's slide that all the way up there. I'm going to do some cutting in the round. There's another jig that I'll show you, which is really easy to make, actually. We're going to cut in the round. Now, that's one of the tricky things to do on a bandsaw. Now, this clamp that I've got is a little kind of cam clamp in effect. It's a little toggle clamp. So I lock my block off, and then I can push down on my lever, and it pushes pressure down the log against my other gripping block and gives me a really secure grip to my material. That is held in there now. Okay, it's not going to roll. It's not going to move in the cut. I'm comfortable and happy that that's going to cut really well. Right, so I'm going to do this on the big boy, I think. Let's take this over. We don't need the fence, so we'll slide the fence out of the way. All right, don't have to take it off, it just come out of the way, really. All right, put my ears over there. I can put my ears on. Right, so we can get some extraction. So the machine goes on. I load my jig onto my bandsaw. Let's get it just like that. Right. Slow start, just to get that blade engaged. And it's a slow feed through. It's not going to move, it's not going to deviate, it's not going to wobble. I'm not worried about movement. I've got it snugly fit into the mitre fence. The weight is on the table itself. The downward pressures to the table, it's not going to fall off. The log is well clamped. Slow and steady wins the race. Look at that. I'm not having to put a lot of pressure on this. And we'll watch that last little bit peel off. Beautiful. Okay. So let's have a look where we're at. And what we've got is that first straight cut. Now I'm going to do one adjustment to the jig. I'm going to pull the fence forward, and what this will do is remove more material. So let's say we'll get 1 inch. Oh, I've got a question.
So we've got a question from Maria. Are you at any risk of cutting that end toggle?
No. If I move much further forward, yes, but I've got a number of different fence positions here. So if I get to the point that I think this is going to come into contact, I'll adjust the log back, because this handle can flip all the way around. This handle will go all the way kind of flat in line. So I won't be touching that. I'm still a good 2 inches off it. All right. The next cut. So I don't need to necessarily unclamp. I can just move and lift the fence over. All right. Just like that. There we go. And that's where these lines come in, because, you know, I could do quite a precise inch board now. There we go. Lock that in. What am I looking at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. So let's say these are inch apart. So it gives me a good guideline of where we're at. There we go. Nothing else has moved. Clamp's still in good position. Pick that up. More extraction. Okay. Slow and steady. This is really quite wet. Look at the support table at the back. Roller stand. Pull that back through. Take them off, reset, go again if we want to. Right. Ears off for a moment. So there we go. All right. So we've taken Colwyn's log to kind of slab form. Really clean, really straight, regular thickness. Now what you could do at this stage, if you find you made a jig and you don't want to be hassled with the jig anymore, well, what have you got? You've got a good flat surface to start with, haven't you? You've just machined this. Now this can come onto your, oh, just going to come out. Yeah, there you go. You could almost take it there now. Take it down the middle. Quarter saw it. Slab saw it off your fence. So, a little jig. That's quite a big jig. You can make them smaller. But I've made it to fit both these bandsaws and this bigger bandsaw, and it's really quite useful. And then what you can do, you could even peel a little bit of this off. All right, get a really pretty piece off here, and like I say, just keep going until you end up with nothing left. So that's kind of straight cutting, kind of wide blades. Look at jigs. Look at doing it freehand. Look at using the fence and a couple of push blocks and guides and stuff. One question we had early on was cutting in the round. All right. Now, Colwyn, good friend of mine. He's always good to me. Here you go, Craig. Now, he knows my answer to this. That's kind of why he did it. What about if I want to cut this down the middle? Cutting it round, cutting a bowl blank, it's kind of relatively easy. 1/4 inch blade, take your time. It's quite a deep piece, so yeah, take your time and quite a coarse tooth. But what about if I want to get 2 bowls out of this piece of material? Cutting it down the middle. No, don't do it. It ain't safe. Even with a jig or something, just get a different blank. Save this one for a job that kind of suits this size of material. There's just not enough to grip and hold this particular material. I'm gonna show you a jig which helps with this sort of work. So let's introduce another jig. Here we go. Now, this is a really nice one, really easy to use. All right, you've got the not circle cutting jig. It's kind of cutting in the round jig. Look at that. So it's made to work with a regular miter fence. Now, if you look on the miter fence on a bandsaw, let's just take it off. There we go. Take that off. 2 knobs. Boom. That's all it is. Most bandsaws come with one. If they don't, they're not very much money to buy. They've got these 2 locating holes here. You could fit long piece of timber through to help you if you're cross-cutting. But, you know, if you do cut in the round, and what I mean by cutting in the round is if you want to take this in half. Now, it's okay on kind of longer bits and smaller diameter bits. The reason I said no to this large piece, you've just not got enough to hold on to. There's not enough to grip to do this safely. This piece of apple being longer, and a bit smaller in diameter, just makes it so much easier. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do it on the smaller bandsaw for you. I'm going to set it all up. It won't take long because I'm just about there anyway. And I'm going to do those cookie cuts that Maria was asking about. It was Maria, wasn't it? Yeah. Maria in Wales. Watching the Six Nations this weekend. Colwyn and I, big rugby fans. England, Wales. Right, so mitre fence goes in. Normal kind of mitre fence stuff. Nothing special there. Right, your jig will then, get the washers in the right way, just sit on there, sit on the table. All right, locks off. Again, we've got support as close as we can to the blade. I made the jig so it's close to the blade. All right, so it gives me maximum support in this area. So what I'll do is put that in there. So let's do what was quite pretty. What do we have? Let's do some smaller bits, and then we'll do some bigger bits. All right. So cutting through there. Again, I'll bring the guides down, right? And make sure that the guides clear your jig as well as the material. Now you can see that we've got this sat in a V groove. We've got a V groove here. This is grip tape, kind of the stuff that you put on steps and stuff like that. We don't sell it, but it's readily available. So what we're looking to do is just slice through. So we'll get something going. What I've got there, this won't roll now. It's really stable in this gripped V groove. If you're worried about movement or something's really, really difficult to cut, you could even put a clamp on there, just here, just grip hold of that. You could just clamp that easily. Let me get you a clamp and show you. Here we go. So it's just a case of just putting a clamp. You don't want to get the clamp too close to the material. You don't want to risk cutting it, like you would. You don't want the end of the clamp to get stuck on anything there. I don't feel the need for a clamp very often, I gotta say. So we'll get rid of that. So let's just slice off a few bits. I think this is my apple again, actually. So if we can get some extraction. All right. Move that one out of the way, watching my hands. Here we go, a little bit thicker. Such an easy thing to use. Get some really nice, regular, smooth cuts. Where ordinarily you'd be worried, well, you wouldn't want it, I wouldn't recommend doing this. Really worry about doing this sort of job. All right, so we'll just wait for the blades. Oh, yeah. Got another question, Ben?
So I've got a couple of questions. I've got one for you, Craig, and one for Colwyn. We've got a quick one for Colwyn. When you wet sanded your bowl last week, you said you were going to apply 3 more coats. Do you wet sand subsequent coats too?
No, you just apply them really, really lightly, so very light coats, and then burn them up in again. So no need to wet sand after the first one.
Lovely, thanks, Colwyn. And then for Craig, how long have those logs been sitting in what's the idealish moisture for this?
Oh, well, you can cut it at any point, really. It's just what you can do with it afterwards. I mean, that piece of ash that I ripped down the length that Colwyn kindly brought in, I mean, what was that brought down a few months ago?
Yeah, just 3 or 4 months.
A few months ago, and it kind of feels dry to the touch on the outside, but we're not talking about water moisture, we're talking about resins and stuff. That would take quite a while. It's considerably quicker to dry, obviously, if you're slabbing it. I don't know, I might be slab something like that and leave it for 6 months, something like that. And then if you really want to get into the moisture content, I think around 7-8%, maybe 10% is what's deemed as quite usable. Not necessarily wood turning. Is it about the same, would you say, or?
About 12%.
About 12 for the wood turning. Yeah, I mean, I know Colwyn and some of his bigger stuff, he likes or prefers to turn it really quite wet because it turns easy, I think. Yeah, so Logs depends on size; they will take an age sometimes. If you slab it, it'll be much quicker. Make sure you try and secure it. So get the logs stacked up together with bits of timber in between and wrap it. Seal the ends. That'll stop the material kind of trying to dry out from the end too quickly and getting these shakes. These will be shakes, won't they, from the ends? Getting these shakes. Okay. Oh, yes, Ben.
So they're coming in thick and fast now.
Good.
So why would you want to cut in the round? Surely the pith would cause splitting.
It would sometimes for certain projects. Yeah, I mean, these little decorative kind of cookie type things that a lot of people use, put some pyro on there, little Christmas decorations. I've actually got some lovely, and I think it was a piece of laburnum I had my hands on a few years ago. I got some coasters and I oiled them and oiled them and oiled them, so they really drunk it in, and they haven't split at all. Sometimes wood turners, if they're turning small vases, and like the mushrooms you see, they're often turned in the round. Am I right? You can tell turning is not really my thing, can't you? Colin. So yeah, that's kind of why.
Okay, and then we've got a question. What's the angle of the V on the jig?
45.
45, lovely.
45. And this kind of medium-sized one, if you're doing anything bigger, you can bring this up. And just like I did on the slabbing jig or on the resaw jig, you can actually put some screws through this face, so they just stick out through the face where the timber lies and gives you extra grip if you're doing anything a little bit bigger. I'm going to do something a bit bigger in a minute to show you, but yeah. Okay, Ben?
That was a question from Adrian. We've got another one from Maria. The best way to dry those log cookies?
Oh, I'd stick them in a bag. Stick them in a little Ziploc bag, depending on how big they are. And that'll prevent them from drying out too quickly. The worry is, let me just go and grab something. This was an interesting thing. Where are those pieces that I cut? Ah, here we go. I just dashed around the other side of the workshop. Right. Now, before we went on air today, I slabbed this. I cut this off the end of this apple. All right. So this has only been off, well, I don't know, a couple of hours, 3 hours or something like that. Look at it. It's really thin. I was just testing the precision of the jig, really. This is about 2 mil thick overall. But this was soaking wet and then put next to my heater in the workshop here. You can see how that's gone. Thicker, just stick them in a bag. Stop them drying out too quickly, really. Just stick them in a bag. Okay. All right. So let's do a bit of cookie cutting or cutting on this. Is it going to go underneath? That's what we're going to check. Right. Now, I'm going to bottom out here, so it's not going to work. Is it going to work? Right. So what we're going to do, I'm going to take this very same jig over to the other machine. There we go. Drops in there. Does the same thing. Locate it in. Make sure I've got enough height under the guides. There we go. Nice. Right. Leave that. Ears on and extraction on. Make sure they're well away from the log when they're starting. And, it's quite a heavy piece. But I don't feel the need to clamp. It's really got hold of that. Look. Oh, good. There we go. That's another reason you stand to the side of the machine, not necessarily in front of the machine. All right. So there we are. Let me pick that up. Dropped off the front of the bandsaw. There. Okay. Well, we've done a lot of talking about bandsaws, a lot of using bandsaws today. We have cut straight. We've looked at sizing logs. We've talked blades and stuff. I hope you found that useful. So please, as always, drop in the questions either via email, woodworkingwisdom.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification buttons just to keep in touch with what we're doing. These are regular videos that we're putting out live 3 times a week. So yeah, please join us. Tuesday, Turning Tuesday, Colwyn Way. We'll see you then. Take care. Bye-bye now.